Hi everybody, this is Mr. Quesada here. Today is Veterans Day, and it's time for us to pay our respects to those who've served in our military, and we all stand united in respect for our veterans. Now you go to Middletown High School, and you have the best history teachers in the world, so you probably already know this. But I just want to remind you that this holiday started as a day to remember the heroism of those who died in our country's service. It was originally called Armistice Day, and it fell on November 11th because that is the anniversary of the signing of the armistice that ended World War I. It was the 11th day of the 11th month in the 11th hour in the year 1918. World War I, or the Great War as it was known then, was nothing like anyone living had ever experienced or probably even imagined. It was the bloodiest, most devastating conflict that the world had ever seen up until that point. There was unimaginable death and destruction, only to be outdone 2 decades later with an even costlier war in World War II. Now today, people all over our community will be honoring the brave men and women who have served our country. In fact, you may see many people wearing red poppies on their lapel or their hats as a remembrance for our veterans. Now, red poppies had been associated with the war for many years, even before World War I. People noted that poppies grew quickly in fields after battle. Now, this was because the lime content would go up and leave only certain plants able to thrive. So even though the landscape was destroyed, these plants would grow there. And poppies were one of the few plants able to grow. So at the start of World War I, a poet and a medical doctor from Ontario, Canada, named John McCrae, enrolled with the Canadian Expeditionary Force. Now, he was 41 years old at the time, and he could have easily sat the war out or joined the medical corps because of his training and certainly his age. But he volunteered instead to join a fighting unit as a gunner and a medical officer. It was actually his second tour of duty in the Canadian military. In 1915, McCrae fought in a famous or infamous battle, the Second Battle of Ypres in the Flanders region of Belgium. This is where the German army launched one of the very first chemical attacks in the history of war. They used 150 tons of chlorine gas, but even so, they were not able to break through the Canadian line, which held for 2 weeks. If you've ever read the accounts of this and what chlorine gas does to people, it's truly horrible. In that battle, a close friend of McCrae's was killed. McCrae wrote a poem dedicated to him and the other fallen soldiers, but he quickly discarded it. He didn't think it was very good. Now, luckily, his men retrieved it from the trash and they made him keep it. And it was entitled In Flanders Fields. It was written in a French style of poetry called a rondeau, 13 lines divided into 3 stanzas. And it reads like this. In Flanders fields the poppies blow, between the crosses row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky the larks, still bravely singing, fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you from failing hands we throw the torch, be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders fields. In Flanders Fields became one of the most popular poems of its era and remains one of the most popular poems in Canadian literature. The poem was published throughout the world, crystallizing for people the sacrifice of the soldiers who died in what people hoped would be the war to end all wars. Now, McCrae would see the poem published, and he would see it gain worldwide popularity. But sadly, he would die before the end of the war, in January 1918 of pneumonia. In the coming years, America celebrated November 11th as Armistice Day until 1954, when the holiday was changed to Veterans Day in order to account for all veterans in all wars. In that short time, we had already had World War II and the Korean conflict. As you know, it's important to thank a veteran. Today, we celebrate and honor America's veterans for their patriotism, their love of America, and willingness to serve and sacrifice. Since our country's founding, more than 1 million American soldiers have given their lives in service to our nation. Remember that today. And please take a moment of silence with your family today to honor the men and women who have paid the ultimate sacrifice in defense of our country. Thank you, everybody, and please thank a vet.